Storm arrows. This, I think, is a big issue for a lot of people. Storm arrows are very simple. They do a huge amount of damage. They contribute massively to Hanzo's shield break potential. The damage has been reduced from 60 to 70. I think that's a good change. McCree. Base health increased from 200 to 250. And the Peacekeeper's primary fire has been reverted. Reduced from 70 to 60, whatever. I said the words reduced. It doesn't matter whether or not the... Chat. Shut up. Okay? Right. Anyway, storm arrows have been reduced. Alright? So, Hanzo no longer has easily the best shield break in the entire game. That's actually huge. Like, that makes a big difference. Because Hanzo is a fantastic hero at being able to get picks, sure. But if you play other heroes like a McCree or a Soldier 76 or an Ashe or whatever hero that has like okay shield break, you can't just play with your team against a Hanzo. If you're playing Miracomps apart from, you don't have a Hanzo, you have this other DPS. You can't just play directly against each other because the Hanzo will just break your shield quicker and you will lose. So you are forced then to take your DPS on a flank in order to get value out of it. But with the storm arrows being reduced in damage, I think the shield break potential should go down quite a lot. Maybe not enough so that Hanzo isn't still the best. Hanzo might still be the best at shield break because the hero is still really powerful, but you're starting to get a little bit more in tune with other heroes and their level of shield break. And yeah, in terms of kills as well, three shots would be 180 damage. 3 shots with the previous one would be 210 damage. So yeah, but for me, what's more defining about the meta is your ability to shield break at the moment. It's not really your ability to get easy kills with Storm Arrow. It's more about the shield break, in my opinion. James Threehead, thank you for the 2 months in a row. The McCree changes, though, very interesting. Because what they've done with McCree, I think, is what I'm really hoping they do with a bunch of different heroes, is not just tweak numbers, but actually change the identity of the hero. McCree is no longer the squishy cowboy that's going to run around and go like, blah, 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 blah. He is going to sit with your team and be fairly invulnerable to being dived upon. And so they've reduced his fire rate, and they've kind of reverted it back to how it was before he could just terrorize everybody. But they've compensated for that with more health. I saw that there was a lot of people complaining about this in terms of they don't like 250 HP heroes. They don't like how Mei feels. She feels clunky. She feels very difficult to actually kill with like one click or something. You know what I mean? There's a lot of combos in the game designed around 200 HP. So a lot of people dislike playing against Mei for that reason. I would suggest that the reason that Mei feels so bad is because she has a self-heal on top of that. So if you don't finish her off, she just self-heals back up, or she has an escape with her wall as well. And you get the feeling that you were kind of robbed of the kill, because if she had been 200 HP, you would have killed her. I think that's more the issue psychologically playing against the Mei, especially because she slows you down and all sorts of annoying shit. With McCree, I actually like this change. He has always been the hero that was supposed to counter flanky targets, right? Like, talk to any plat player, they'll tell you, if you got a Tracer and a Genji on the team, you want to be running the McCree for the flashbang. It's like a very, very basic plat chat kind of thing, right? The flashbang counters flanky heroes. And those often do a lot of burst damage. They got onto you very quickly, and you now have more resilience to be able to deal with that. So, yeah, cosign. He's no longer a glass cannon. He's now more of a central unit that you play around with your team, and you don't have to completely peel for him, but he's gonna just kind of be a bit of a unit at the back. I like this change because it doesn't just buff or nerf, it changes the identity of the hero, which is something that I think that they have kind of been missing for a little while. They've also added in this kind of quality of life thing. Firing Deadeye no longer locks a player's aim, so if you lock onto somebody and so if you pop your Deadeye, and a Genji is coming towards you or something, and you manage to get the skull on them, and they dash behind, you can shoot the people in front and still turn around and shoot the Genji behind you. It's just a quality of life thing. It makes it slightly better to get value out of Deadeye. I think it's good. I think it's a nice quality of life buff, and it requires a little bit of timing and skill and awareness to be able to pull off ridiculous improvements with this change. So yeah, seems fine to me. I don't think the Deadeye is going to be broken in any sense. So yeah, seems fine. It does look cool as well. That's a good point, Giggly. Reaper, the Reaping passive. The healing amount is reduced from 40% to 30% of damage dealt. This is an interesting one to me, because Reapers at mid-level gameplay can just sit in the front line forever because they have 40% healing. 40% of their damage is returned to them as healing. It makes them so resilient against an unorganized team. Against an organized team, like you see in the Overwatch League, Reaper can't really sit in the front lines that much. He can when the whole team's around him and there to support him, but he's not invincible. And you would often see the Reaper getting kind of flanks off and having to time things really well in order to get a crucial kill, or timing things really well to come in from a flank at the same time as the rest of his team's pushing, this kind of stuff. I think that this is a good change because it doesn't nerf how he's played at the high level that much, but it does stop him from dominating pub games and kind of annoying tanks and making tank players' lives hell. The thing with Reaper that's in the back of my head, though, is that Reaper was always a bit of a throw pick before this meta. I think it would be quite easy to make Reaper a throw pick again. If the meta changes around him, if you no longer are able to play very close quarters compositions, Reaper is already dead. Doesn't matter how much healing he gets. If you can't play the kind of Orisa-centric, I suppose you could still play if you were running like Ryan's area in theory, but if you're not playing Deathball, let's put it like that, like a comp that clumps up together and rushes people, if you're not playing that kind of style, you're probably not going to be playing a Reaper anyway. So, in my opinion, Reaper wasn't really mega powerful. He was just benefiting from the other heroes that were meta at the moment. So I don't think that this change is necessary, but I do think that it will go some way towards making him not a dominant pick and an annoying pick at middling kind of ranks. I don't think it's a bad change. I don't think it's a necessary change. I think it's just a kind of in the middle kind of thing. Starforge just will not stop repeating that Ryan can now 1v1 a Reaper. It's a break point in that matchup. So, I actually think that any analysis based on whether someone can 1v1 somebody else, or like how many shots it takes to kill somebody, is a really, really weird way of thinking about the game. Because Overwatch is such a team game that you actually quite rarely get 1v1s. If you're genuinely 1v1 in a Reaper as a Reinhardt, you're probably just cleaning him up at the end of a fight anyway. It doesn't really happen very often, so it's such a niche case to even think about that it doesn't make sense to consider that as a balance proposal. You know what I mean? It's like when people were talking in the chat previously about you now need 4 Storm Arrows to kill instead of 3. That makes more sense because Hanzo is more often on the flank trying to take 1v1s or trying to pick off individual targets. But even then, a lot of the time you're going to be shooting targets that are weak anyway. So a lot of the time it won't even matter. So I think thinking about things in terms of a 1v1 basis is like, it puts blinkers on the way that you think about the game quite a lot. In low ranks, maybe it is significant. I mean, maybe you do get 1v1s all the time, but my experience of low ranks, I play in low ranks as well, right? Like, I play in fairly, well, I guess above average ranks in terms of literal statistics, but I have played in, like, you know, plat before, and it's chaos. There's a lot of just constant team fights as well as 1v1s, so I don't know, man. I don't tend to think about things in terms of 1v1s almost ever. Okay, Orisa changes though. The fusion driver. The damage reduction is really key, I think. They've nerfed 3 parts of her kit here. The fact that all 3 parts are nerfed is almost as big as any of the nerfs themselves. They are really crippling Orisa quite a lot to remove her out of the meta. And this, I actually put out a tweet a while back where I said something like, players want a balanced game, but balancing a game properly is really, really difficult, like Overwatch. Like, actually getting it perfectly balanced, so hard. A more reasonable aim is probably to make larger changes that kind of swing the meta, even if you're being a bit cynical about it. Even if you really just have to take a hammer to someone's knees. Just sit Orisa down, lock her in a chair, get out that rope with a knot on the end, like in Casino Royale. Just swing, whata! And Orisa's just, what? Does Orisa have big robot balls? Possibly. I don't know. Okay, so the fact that they've nerfed 3 parts of a kit is really huge, but to go through them individually, the damage reduction here means that you can actually approach with other heroes. It's really huge, this, in my opinion. I don't know whether the number itself is huge, because I haven't playtested or seen any matches on it, but the fact that they have reduced it is important. Orisa can shoot at the same time as deploying shields. This is a huge part of Orisa's kit. It's what makes her really important as a main tank, is that she can keep breaking your shield whilst replacing her own shield. Whereas if you're playing a Reinhardt, you just have to walk up with your shield. You can't hurt her shield. You're relying on the rest of your team, and you have to just hold yours up. That kind of stuff. So the fact that Orisa can actually put out damage, and Sigma, they both can put out damage at the same time as keeping their shield up, is huge in terms of shield wars. In terms of putting pressure on your opponent and deciding who's going to win the shield war, in terms of their health, in terms of the space that they're able to gain, how quick they're able to get into your face. So that's a big one. A big one. The Fortify cooldown increased from 8 to 10 seconds. I think this is just reverting a change. Am I wrong about that, chat? Because I think they reduced the cooldown on Fortify a while back. And now I think they're increasing it again. And I think that this is a good thing, because the Orisa gameplay kind of became like you could just press Fortify on cooldown, or you were supposed to press it a lot more often. You didn't have to think as much about when you had to use your Fortify. And I think finding that sweet spot of actually having to make a very clear decision about whether or not this is a good time to use an ability is a good thing for the game. So I like that. The halt cooldown, though, is really cool. The snare duration reduced from 1 to 0.85, right? It doesn't say 6.5. Does it say 6.5? I thought it said 8.5, but now I can't read. Oh, it does say 6.5, yeah. This one's enormous. And I think Bren tweeted about it, where he said something like he liked this change because not only does it nerf Orisa's kit in terms of just what she's able to do, but it increases the skill ceiling as well, because the difference now between a good Orisa and an average Orisa and a bad Orisa is higher. There's more difference between when you're timing your halts. Combos are going to be much harder to pull off. I don't know how much harder, because you've still got the slow at the end of the snare, right? So even when you suck people in, they're still slowed for a little bit afterwards. So I would have to watch a bunch of games to see whether specific combos are much harder to pull off, to the point where they're not even worth going for. But I think if you were looking for a sweet spot, you would try and find the point at which it's possible to get good combos, but it's a little difficult. It's worth going for them, but you don't get them every single time. That's kind of the level where you're going for. Or it's worth going for them, and if you're a very coordinated team, you can get them. But if you're not very coordinated, you don't get them. That's the kind of balance that you're trying to get there. Oh, is it the slow that's actually changed? Ah, that's what the snare is. Okay, I misunderstood. Apologies. I've been in Belfast, so I haven't actually seen any gameplay of this footage. I thought it meant the snare as in when they're sucked in. So the slow has been changed. Okay, so that really affects stuff like Dragon, Rock. Dragon's the big one, though. It doesn't really affect Hook that much. Because most of the time when you're hooking, you're trying to halt them out of an area. You're trying to halt them like above a shield or above some kind of cover, and you grab them while they're just held in the air. So I don't think that it will affect Halt Hook that much. I don't think it should affect Halt Hook at all. But I think it will affect Halt Dragon a lot, because the reason that Halt Dragon was so good is that you got sucked into the middle of the dragon, and then you were slowed as you tried to run out of the dragon. So it did a lot of damage to you while you were stuck, but if you weren't slowed at all, you could just run straight out. So I think Halt Dragon will now be a lot harder to get out of. Halt Dragon will now be a lot harder to pull off successfully. Yeah, Halt Flux, that's another one actually, but Flux itself has been changed here as well. Halt Flux will now be not as good a combo. But the Flux area is so big that I think Halt Flux will still be pretty fine. I don't think Flux or Blizzard will really be affected because the area of effect is so large. I think Dragon is the main one that really gets affected by this. Anyway, they've actually changed Sigma as well, so let's get to that. Anyway, the overall change for Orisa, just to recap a little bit, is that she has less shield break, she's a little squishier like she was before, and she doesn't quite halt people as much. These are... On paper, they don't look like absolutely crippling nerfs, but they've already made nerfs to her over a period of time, where this, I think, will tip it over the edge. I don't think we'll see Orisa being played all the time. It's hard to say, but I don't think we will. Especially because Sigma has had changes as well. So Sigma, in my opinion, I would have... If I was trying to create a patch that changed this meta, I would have changed... The things that I would have changed significantly were Sigma's primary fire, Sigma's shield, halt, and immortality field. And they've done almost all of those things. Not exactly in the way in which I would have done them, but yeah, and I suppose I might have changed like May, being able to freeze through people or something, but really it's those three that I would have focused on. Because I think the tanks dictate the DPS heroes that you're able to play most of the time. Sigma. The hyperspheres are a pain in the dick. The biggest problem with Sigma, in my opinion, is that he can totally shut down any flank. Not just with his shield. He holds up his shield and then he also damages you. For a lot of damage. Huge damage from a long way away. And even if he's got his shield somewhere else, he can still damage you from a long way away. He can win 1v1s against most of the flankers. That's crazy to me. That he has so much utility, but also has so much poke. And poke, I think, is the correct term here, because it's not like he's going in there fucking wrestling people to the ground trying to wring their necks. He's just putting consistent poke damage out so that you don't feel comfortable committing to a fight and going for a pick. So the range reduction on the hyperspheres is important. I would have nerfed the damage a little bit, but perhaps a range reduction is better, because what you're doing is reducing the ability to poke. You can't poke from as far away, right? Like, poke damage is getting damage on people from a long way away so that they can't close the gap effectively. They'll just take too much damage and they'll die. They won't necessarily die from you, but they'll die from some other shit if they get too close because you've poked them. With the range reduction, these flankers have now just got a free 2 meters. I'm not sure it's going to be enough. I think Sigma's still going to be very oppressive to people trying to flank, but I think it's a good move in the right direction. The graphitic flux can now be interrupted before targets begin falling. I like this. I think it makes intuitive sense. If you watch it and the guy lifts you up and then you kill him, but you just fall back to the ground anyway, I know that I always say that balancing things via, like, lore or internal logic within the game doesn't make any sense, but I mean, that just didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense at all. And it just removed so much counterplay. Like, you killed the Sigma, you've surely done the thing that required the counterplay. Nah, you just get slammed to the ground anyway for 50% of your health in the most damaging ult in the game. Cool. Great counterplay. So, I think this change is a good one. I'm not sure that it really has, like, the highest impact in the world, but I think it is a really good change and changes how you have to play with your fluxes. You can't now just run in and don't care if you die, you get a 3-man flux. You have to really be protected while you're floating around in the air. It changes the dynamic of how you use flux a lot, I think. I like the change. I think that that's a very good one. Accretion. The explosion damage is reduced from 60 to 40. I think that's a good change, but I also don't think it's that important. The reason why is because most of the time, if you rock somebody, they will be killed by your team anyway. You're not rocking people from miles away. You're rocking people comboed with something, or you're rocking people that have already come into your side of the map. You know, you're rocking some kind of person that's attacking you and has dived through your shields or has flanked you or something like that. If they're CC'd, if they're stunned, they're probably going to die, even if the damage wasn't that high. So I think the change is good, but I don't think that it's going to make a huge difference. Now, all the changes added together for Orisa in terms of the halt change with the snare duration, the flux no longer slowing people, the accretion damage slowing down, this nerfs Orisa Sigma as a whole. But I don't think that the accretion change itself is enormous. And I know that people in the chat are being like, you know, it stops you getting one shot and stuff. I think, again, I'm not really thinking about things from a 1v1 point of view that often, but I will definitely agree with you that Sigma takes quite a lot of 1v1s actually, because his job is to guard the flank and to kill people that are trying to flank and kill people that are on their own. Like, he is the person that's supposed to stop lone flankers, lone aggressors. So it does make sense to think about the amount of damage that he does. This is why, though, I would have preferred to also make a small reduction to the hypersphere damage. Because even though your range has been reduced, I think the damage that they do at the moment is still a huge amount. And you could argue, I suppose, that they are quite skillful to be able to hit because they're projectiles and they bounce off things and this kind of stuff. But if you're right up in somebody's face, or even if you're not, if you're just coming down a corridor or something where you can't avoid them, they still do a huge amount of damage. I think Sigma's still going to be powerful. Orisa Sigma as a duo is going to be less powerful, but I think Sigma is still going to be powerful. Sigma's ult is not going to be as bonkers powerful as it was previously, though. I'm interested, as a side point, to see if they nerf Sigma so much that D.Va comes back in. Because a lot of the Reddit community is like, lol D.Va, whenever you talk about how good an off-tank is at D.Va for the 2020 season. I think it wouldn't be... I think it would not be too difficult to get D.Va straight back into the meta again. You would have to make significant patch changes, but the dev team has shown that they're willing to make significant patch changes. So, I think the off-tank position is probably the position that's going to change the most this season in 2020, compared to historically in Overwatch, because people have just been able to play essentially D.Va the entire time. And the way in which teams have built their teams for the off-season and then might have to change. Interesting. I hope we never get a situation where off-tanks only have to play one hero ever again. Even if that requires regular meta changes where they just take out Sigma's kneecaps and then chop off his toes and then slice little pieces off D.Va. Getting dark. Okay. Baptiste. Biotic launcher primary fire. Recovery time increased quite a bit. I think that's a good change. Baptiste was just doing huge amounts of damage. Secondary fire. Heal explosion reduced from 60 to 50. I don't think this is a good change. This is the only one on the list where I'm like, I actually think that this might not be a good change. The reason is, and I know that people think healing is OP in this game and stuff like that, and they like to see healing reduced. The reason that I don't think they should have nerfed the healing is because Baptiste was able to function as a main support with his large amounts of healing. And if you nerf his healing, you're just going to get Moira back in the meta as just that person that just pumps healing into people. And if I have a healer paired up with my other off healer, I would much rather have Baptiste in the game than Moira. So I think until they do something interesting with Moira, I would rather them leave Baptiste maybe a little bit bust. Just fix his immortality field, or nerf his immortality field so that it has more counterplay. Add some counterplay to immortality field, but keep him kind of busted. In terms of his healing output, I mean. Because otherwise you just get Moira. And Moira sucks the soul out of stuff. It's the least interesting hero in the game. So, yeah. That's my opinion. And Ana meta would be fantastic as well. But that's the other thing. Ana doesn't have the escape to be able to do what Moira does. You can play Moira and you can heal people and just shove your juice up their butt from anywhere because you just got a get out of jail free card. You just slither away like a snake and you're out. You're gone. You never existed. You were a mere mirage. So, unless they make changes to Moira, she's very hard to punish. And a hero that's hard to punish is good at the pro level because Overwatch really comes down to who makes mistakes and gets punished for them. So, you're more likely to make a mistake playing Ana than you are playing Moira. And then you die, and then you lose the fight. So, yeah. What I would like them to do with Moira is not tweak the numbers. It's to think about what her place in the meta is, or what they want it to be, and make it that. And so, personally, I think it's okay that Moira has Fade. Moira can be the undiveable, unkillable support if you want her to be. But if she is, she can't also be able to do loads of damage and loads of healing. Because her niche is to be able to escape. You already have, like, Ana does healing and utility. Mercy does healing and damage boost. Lucio does speed and a bit of healing. Baptiste does the lamp is his big thing, but also a bit of damage and healing. The niche for Moira, I think, should be her escape. It's the most unique thing about her kit. So to lean into that and make her this is the hero you play when your backline is just getting hammered and you need to stay alive. But in order to play her, you have to give up a little bit of the healing that you would get from an Ana or a Baptiste or whatever. That's my opinion. There's a lot of different ways that you could redesign. It doesn't even have to be a major redesign, but kind of find a niche for Moira to inhabit. So, yeah, reducing her healing range or just reducing the amount of healing that you can do, like the literal numbers that you do. Yeah, Mercy can't group heal. I mean, Mercy has interesting movement. Mercy also has the damage boost. I think Mercy's actually in a very interesting place. To compare Moira, Mercy is so wrong to me. It's incomparable. They've actually done a great job with Mercy compared to where she began and where she has been at certain times, with like the Moth meta and shit. She's in a really good place at the moment. Anyway, yeah, those are my thoughts on the PTR patch. I think it's a good one. I think it's really good.